A 26-year-old woman walks into a cafe carrying the weight of 2 years' worth of judgment, a diaper bag packed with military precision, and a secret that could destroy the only chance at love she's had in years. Across the room, a widowed father of one sits waiting, his coffee growing cold, his heart braced for disappointment. What happens in the next 60 seconds will either confirm every cruel assumption she's learned to expect, or it will shatter everything she thought she knew about being seen. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The door of the wandering mug opened with a soft chime that felt deafening in Amira Collins' ears. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she scanned the small cafe, her grip tightening on Kira's warm body pressed against her hip. There, by the window, a man with dark hair and tired eyes that reminded her of her own reflection. He was already looking at her, his expression shifting from polite anticipation to visible confusion as his gaze dropped to the toddler on her hip. Here we go, Amira thought, forcing her feet to move forward. Let the judgment begin. She had dressed carefully that morning, a red dress that she'd ironed twice, her blonde hair pulled back in what she hoped looked intentional rather than hastily assembled. Kira had fought her through diaper changes and shoe negotiations, and now clung to her mother's neck with the possessive grip of a koala. Abram Gray stood as she approached, nearly knocking his knee against the table. His coffee sloshed dangerously close to the rim of his cup.
"Abram?" Amira's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Sienna?" He caught himself. "Wait, no, Amira, sorry, yes, hi, hello." The man was nervous. That was unexpected. Kira lifted her head from Amira's shoulder, fixing Abram with the kind of frank, unblinking stare that only toddlers and particularly judgmental house cats could achieve. One chubby finger found its way into her mouth as she studied him with the intensity of a scientist examining a particularly interesting specimen. Amira took a breath. This was the moment where he would make an excuse about forgetting something in his car, or suddenly remember an urgent work emergency, or simply stand up and walk away like the man 3 months ago who had looked at Kira and said, "I'm not looking to raise someone else's mistake." The memory of that night, crying in her car for an hour, Kira sleeping peacefully in her car seat, blissfully unaware that she'd just been called a mistake, strengthened Amira's resolve. "This is Kira," she said, the words coming out in a rush. "My daughter. I know I probably should have mentioned her before, but I wanted you to see the full picture before you decided if you wanted to run. Most people do. Run, I mean. And I completely understand if you want to. I'm tired of pretending to be something I'm not. I'm a package deal. This is the package. If that's not what you're looking for, I won't be offended." She paused, slightly breathless. "Well, I might be a little offended, but I'll get over it." The silence that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Amira watched Abram's face, trying to read the micro-expressions that flickered across it. Surprise, confusion, something that might have been recognition? "Would you like to sit down?" he asked finally, gesturing to the chair across from him. Amira blinked. "What?" "Sit down. Unless you'd prefer to stand, but the chairs here are actually pretty comfortable, or so I've heard. I've only been sitting in mine for about 15 minutes, but so far no complaints." A small, uncertain smile tugged at Amira's lips. You're not going to leave?" "Why would I leave?" "Because I brought a toddler to a blind date. Most people consider that a deal breaker." Abram shrugged, and there was something in his eyes, a weariness that matched her own. "I have a 5-year-old at home. If anything, this just means you understand that babysitters are expensive and unreliable." Amira sat down slowly, her legs suddenly unsteady. She adjusted Kira on her lap, and the little girl immediately began a tactile investigation of the table's surface, her small hands patting the wood with scientific curiosity. "You have a daughter?" Amira managed. "Marley. She's home with my mom right now, probably convincing her that ice cream counts as a vegetable because it has vanilla beans in it." For the first time since walking through that door, Amira laughed, a real laugh, startled out of her like a bird started from a tree. "Mama," Kira announced, tugging at Amira's sleeve with the imperious authority of a tiny dictator. "Hungry." "I know, baby. Give me just a—" "What does she like?"
Abram interrupted, already flagging down a server, a teenage girl with blue-streaked hair and an eyebrow piercing. "They have these little fruit cups here and some kind of cheese crackers that Marley always demands when we come." Amira stared at him as if he had just offered to solve world hunger. Her mouth opened, then closed. She likes cheese and bananas." Perfect. Abram smiled at the server, and Amira noticed the way it transformed his face, softening the tired lines around his eyes. "Could we get a fruit cup, some cheese crackers, and—" He glanced at Amira. "What would you like?" A latte, please?" When the server left, silence settled between them, not uncomfortable exactly, but weighted with the strangeness of the situation. Amira watched Abram watching Kira, who had discovered a fascinating spot on the table and was now tapping it rhythmically with one finger. Tap, tap, tap. Kira narrated her actions with the seriousness of a documentary filmmaker. "That's a very good tap," Abram told her solemnly. Kira beamed at him, revealing 4 tiny teeth. When the food arrived, Kira's eyes widened with the kind of pure joy that only small children experiencing the appearance of snacks could achieve. She reached for the fruit cup with both hands, her coordination still imperfect at 2 years old. Pieces of banana and strawberry threatened to become casualties of her enthusiasm.
"Here, let me—" Amira started, but Abram was already moving. "May I?" he asked, and the question was so gentle, so respectful that Amira could only nod. She watched, frozen, as Abram Gray, a man she had known for approximately 12 minutes, reached across the table and gently lifted Kira on her lap. He settled the toddler against his chest with the practiced ease of someone who had done this thousands of times, one arm supporting her back while his free hand held the fruit cup steady. Kira didn't protest. She simply settled against him as if she'd known him forever, her small body relaxing into his hold. "Nana," Kira said approvingly, around a mouthful of banana that Abram had just guided to her eager mouth. "Good, Nana?" Abram asked her seriously, as if her opinion on the banana quality was of utmost importance. "Good, Nana. More." "What's the magic word?" Kira considered this with the gravity of a philosopher contemplating the meaning of existence. Her face scrunched up in concentration. "Peas? Close enough." Amira had gone completely still across the table, her latte arriving and sitting untouched as she watched the scene unfold. Something was happening in her chest, a cracking sensation, like ice breaking up after a long winter. When Abram looked up and caught her staring, he must have seen something in her face, because his expression shifted to concern. "Is this okay? I didn't mean to just—" "No one's ever—" Amira's voice broke. She pressed her fingers to her eyes, trying to stop the tears that were threatening to fall. I'm sorry. It's just, no one's ever done that before." "Done what?" "Treated her like—" She gestured helplessly at the scene before her, this stranger feeding her daughter fruit with the patience of a saint, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Like she's just a person, not a problem to be solved or a red flag to run from, just a person who likes bananas. "More Nana," Kira demanded, oblivious to the emotional moment happening around her. "See?" Abram said softly, offering Kira another piece of fruit. "She knows what she wants. That's admirable, honestly. Half the adults I know don't have that kind of clarity." Amira laughed again, the sound wet with tears she was still trying to suppress. She finally picked up her latte, wrapping both hands around it as if it could anchor her to this moment, this impossible, unexpected moment where someone was being kind to her daughter without expecting anything in return. "You're very strange, Abram Gray," she said. "I've been told, usually less kindly." Amira had spent 2 years building walls around herself and Kira, expecting rejection so she could brace for it. But here was a man who had just accepted them, both of them, without hesitation. It was terrifying. They talked, and the conversation flowed with an ease that surprised them both. Abram told her about Marley, how she had her mother's brown curls and a stubborn streak that could move mountains. "She asked me the other day why the moon follows our car," he said, a smile playing at his lips.
And when I tried to explain about the moon staying in one place while we move, she said, "Daddy, that's silly. The moon clearly likes our car." Amira laughed. "How do you argue with that logic?" "You don't. I've learned that 5-year-olds are basically tiny lawyers. They'll find loopholes in everything." As they talked, Amira found herself studying Abram's face, the lines around his eyes that spoke of both laughter and grief, the way his expression softened when he talked about his daughter, the gentleness in his hands as he kept Kira entertained with small pieces of fruit. "Can I ask?" Amira hesitated, then pushed forward. "Marley's mother?" Abram's expression shifted, and Amira immediately regretted asking. But he didn't shut down. Instead, he looked out the window at the mountains visible in the distance, his hand still absently rubbing Kira's back. "Samara," he said quietly. "She died 3 years ago. Heart condition no one knew about. She was laughing at something Marley said. Marley was trying to say spaghetti, and it kept coming out as pasketti, and then she just collapsed. By the time the ambulance got there, she was gone." "Amira, I'm so—" "You don't have to say sorry." Gently, he interrupted. "Everyone says sorry, and I appreciate it, but mostly I miss her. Every day. And I'm terrified I'm going to mess up Marley because I'm doing this alone." The honesty in his words struck Amira like a physical blow. She understood that fear, the bone-deep terror of failing the small person who depended on you completely. "I'm sure you're doing great," she said, meaning it. "Some days I'm not sure about anything." He shifted Kira slightly as she started to drowse against his shoulder, her small fist clutching a handful of his shirt. "I tried to date. Twice. It went about as well as you'd expect. One woman left mid-dinner and never came back. The other spent the entire evening talking about cryptocurrency and didn't ask about Marley once." "People are the worst," Amira said with feeling. "Not all people," Abram looked at her meaningfully. "Some people walk into cafes with toddlers on their hips and give strangers a second chance." Amira felt heat rise to her cheeks.